Jupiter Broadcasting presents this program in stereo, where available. This episode of the Linux Action Show is brought to you by GoDaddy.com. Use the promo code Linux to save yourself some cash. And of course, you donated to us. I don't know. This week on the Linux Action Show, our world has been shaken by Nokia. Just where does Nokia's abandonment of open source leave MeeGo? And what can the average user do to reclaim power over their own gadgets? Plus, Debian 6.0 is released, and we'll tell you why it's more important than ever. All this week on the Linux Action Show. Wow. And welcome to Season 15, Episode 6 of the Linux Action Show. My name is Brian. With me, on the other side of the screen, most likely, depending on where Chris put the portions of the screen that contain our faces, is Chris.
Hey there,
Chris.
Brian. The QNAP Systems Home NAS runs Linux. This thing's really cool, Brian. You know, you and I have jumped all around about
it looks
home
like
servers.
It looks like a Drobo laying on its side with more space. Tell me what's awesome about it.
Well, okay, so it does run Linux with, you can get under the hood, and it comes with a 1.6 gigahertz processor. And they've got a fancier, prettier version too. But what the thing does that's really cool is it's got a whole bunch of like server side stuff that you would normally want to set up already configured, like media streaming and transcoding and remote file transfer.
It does transcoding?
Backup. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So you don't even have to set up like extra software to do the transcoding. It just got it.
No, you put it on there and
rad.
it streams it to a network device, and it's got eSAT and USB. You know, I think it starts around $500, but geez, it looks like a pretty nice unit. And you think about it, it's like this low power Linux server just right there.
Wait, so it starts around $500 now. How many drives can you stick in there?
Well, it depends on the version you get. The version that starts around $500 is 4 drives.
Well, that's not bad. I mean, heck, you'd pay that much for just a Drobo anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, if this thing,
and,
heck, why not?
And it comes with dual gigabit Ethernet ports. I don't know, people. The old models were reviewed very well.
What in the heck would
really
you need
fast.
dual gigabit Ethernet ports in a home NAS server? I mean, seriously, at that point, the network you have is faster than your drives. I guess that's my bottleneck. I got 2 home servers sitting over here next to me.
Yeah.
One Linux powered server and one don't mess with me, guys. One Windows powered server. I'm tired. You can't mess with me right now. But I got 2 of them sitting side by side. And now the Linux-powered server, way better throughput. The drives are a little faster, way better transfer to the drives. The Windows server is much slower. But honestly, the whole problem is just the drives. I mean, even with the eSATA drives, especially if you've got like redundancy all set up, that's the bottleneck anyway. So having 2 gigabit Ethernet ports, I have no idea what that would get me.
You're totally right. Unless the only thing I was thinking is, but you don't need gigabit. Maybe that's just what they.
Maybe you get 2 separate IP addresses so you could be on 2 networks at the same time.
Yeah, one's your internal one, and then one's the one for your external stuff for when you're on the go.
That could be kind of cool. Like if you could specify only this folder is external or something like that.
Yeah, wouldn't that be rad?
That would be kind of rad. All right, now I want like 4 gigabit Ethernet ports.
And it might be usable for a little bit too, for light usage, because they include like add-ins and packages, and Drupal and stuff is like one of them, and
no way.
Joomla and stuff. So you can turn on a Drupal plugin or a Joomla plugin, and now you've got a CMS.
To be honestly, even with the 1.6, I'm assuming it's like a 1.6 Atom.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, with the 1.6 Atom, I don't see why it wouldn't be perfectly good for at least moderate to light heavy usage. Because, I mean, if you think about it, people used to run fairly beefy like web servers off of like those original old Mac Minis. You remember when there was that big craze? Like, oh my gosh, Mac Minis are so tiny. Let's
co-located Mac Minis.
Co-located Mac Minis. And honestly, this is probably way beefier than that. And people ran fairly big websites off those. So if you throw Drupal on one of those suckers, hell, why not?
Yeah. It would definitely make for a very reasonable little home or small business server.
Oh,
for sure.
Now I'm really tempted. Are those shipping right now?
I know. That's what I was thinking, because we both are. I like the hardware solution too. You know, where you just kind of set it and forget.
But are they shipping?
Are they shipping yet? I think so. They're available for. Yes, they are, but only from a couple of sites so far. Because it's just released. I'll put a link in the show notes.
I'm tempted on that one.
I'll put an Amazon link in the show notes.
Yeah, please, so I have some way to buy it.
Hey, how you feeling, man? Congratulations on the baby girl.
Thank you. She was born on February 2nd, a little after 8:20 in the morning. And there's me. Yeah,
I look at your pictures, man, and you look tired.
That's me sleeping. Yeah, me sleeping on a couch there. Worth noting, that couch that you showed me sleeping on was the second of 2 couches I slept on, and is significantly comfier than the first couch that I was sleeping on. That's the big, large, spacious couch. The previous one was a tiny, thin little couch. But anyway, yeah. So the little girl, Josephine Marguerite, was born a little after 8:20 a.m. and she was 9 pounds 9 ounces. Nice big baby girl. 15 inches around in the head, which means she's got a big head right from the start. That's everyone can thank me for that one. And 21 inches long, and even more importantly, she has my super ugly feet, which is pretty fantastic. So 100% positive she's mine because ugly feet.
Wife's doing good?
Wife's doing great. She's still recovering. She is hanging out, relaxing. We're not sleeping very much. But
yeah, I know what you mean. Same over here at the Fisher compound.
I'm here. I don't know if I turn my head. You can kind of see my hair's sticking in all funky directions. Haven't showered today. To be
Sounds about right.
Full disclosure here, Chris. Full disclosure. Haven't brushed my teeth today.
Oh man!
Brushed my teeth yesterday once. That was pretty cool.
Brian, if you want to go down full disclosure, maybe it's because neither one of us have had very much sleep recently. But I discovered that I had one of those electric toothbrushes that vibrate. The Sonicare or whatever they are. Well, I don't take the top off after I'm done. I just set it in the charger. And my wife's like, you might want to check underneath that. There might be some mold under there. And I opened up, and there's like black mold up inside my Sonicare
toothbrush.
Actually,
that happens a lot. Even if you so I have the same thing.
So
when you take it off, if you don't make sure it's dried out, it gets in the little creases, little black mold. It's gross. I clean mine out like every 2 weeks or so, just because otherwise they get nasty.
So be glad you guys are not in the live studio audience.
Holy moly. I tell you, I stink. I straight up stink. That's all there is.
Yeah, and I'm not doing so great. I've showered, but my mouth is wet, so
I feel bad for my newborn little girl. She has to put up with this stinky old man. This is I should really shower just for her, really. Yeah, she smells way better than I do.
I've got a couple of cool Android picks, but before we go, B-Man, I want to give a holler over to GoDaddy.com. I noticed they still got Danica on the front page.
Thank goodness.
I thought maybe we were going to get Joan Rivers up there.
They swapped out. That's the new one, right?
That's the new GoDaddy.
Which I got to be honest with you. That's awesome. I mean, Joan Rivers as the GoDaddy girl is awesome. I mean, because the GoDaddy girl's either got to be hot or awesome, right? I mean, that's the whole thing.
I was going to call it as like Kim Kardashian or Paris Hilton, something like that people would just like be a polarizing figure, but Joan Rivers was a great call.
Man. That's awesome.
I know.
That's just rad awesome. So okay. Here's the thing, guys.
Last week, GoDaddy had a pretty sweet deal, but it wrapped up, B-Man. So it's just back to our standard deal.
All right, standard deal. See, guys, you already know the deal. Linux, all caps, type it in as a coupon code. You get 10% off. Linux 20, 20% off of just hosting, not other stuff, just hosting. So be clear about that. Don't screw up.
So I'm going to go ahead and buy Linux is the best faceplatform.com. Let's see if that's
available.
It
is the best face platform.
Hey, look at that. It is available. So if I use the code Linux, I'll save 10%.
You sure will. And then if you add hosting to it, you type in Linux 20, 20% off of the hosting that you added, a different deal. Check out twice.
No way, sir. Man, that is a great way to go.
Think it through and use your head, ladies and gentlemen. Check out twice. Get them both. Anyway, that's awesome. Thank you, GoDaddy. I appreciate it when I'm really, really sleepy. My little daughter appreciates it when she's eating and being really sleepy. Everyone here appreciates it. Even my...
It's funny how babies are always really sleepy, too, even though they are the ones that get any sleep when there is sleep.
Seriously.
I know. All right. Now, I want to lay down two very super geeky Android picks. You guys, if this is too geeky, you just let me know. You write me and say, Chris, you're too geeky, man. You're
seriously?
too geeky.
What could be too geeky on the Linux Action Show? I mean, like this is not.
I know.
This is not
what you're thinking.
I don't know. What are those shows where they like talk about like celebrities who like walked around on the street with smoking a cigarette or whatever those shows are? You know what I'm talking about. That
would be very embarrassing if it was like a Glee gossip app. Get your latest Glee app with push notifications.
Geeky is okay, man. Just own it. Okay, just get in there and own it.
So this first app is a pay app, and I don't usually pick these, but MeeGo, who is the keeper of my Android
picks. Communist background, right?
I just know people like little freebie treats here and there.
Just so everyone on the internet knows, this is a little inside tip here. Chris, among his circles, is actually known as Red Chris. So
yeah, Red Chris.
He used to be Chris the Red, but we decided that was sending too many mixed signals, so it's just Red Chris.
Well, I think it came down to the IRC. It was a pain in the butt because Chris the Red, there's other Chris's in there, so you can't use the tab completion. So if you do Red Chris, nobody else.
Also, when
that.
you type out Chris the Red, it just looks like Chris their D. Which, come on, that doesn't tell anyone that you're communist. We need to make sure they understand how communist you are, down to your bastard core.
Well, if you're feeling like being a communist centrist and maybe you could spend a little bit of money, I'd like to recommend you get Tricorder TR580 if you're a Star Trek fan, because it is a fantastic recreation of the Star Trek Next Generation Tricorder. Scanning effects, noise effects, a little when you open it up, all that kind of stuff. But if you're not a Star Trek fan, if you don't want to pay, or you don't want to pay $1.36, I'm also going to link in Network Info 2.
It really is $1.36, isn't it?
Yeah.
When on earth
it's a weird price,
would someone pick that price point? What is that for? That's just like random pulled out of the air.
Yes. Yes, I don't know, dude. It's funny. And so the other pick is a handy
wait a minute. Someone in the chat was asking a good question. Does it actually do anything? Or is it just for ambiance and...
It can give you like your longitude and latitude coordinates, and if another buddy has the Tricorder app, I think you can find each other kind of with the GPS.
Here's the thing I've got. Here's the thing I've got with these. I love these Tricorder type apps. I've bought plenty of them because, well, I'm a sucker for this sort of thing. But here, N900, right here, you throw on the LCARS themes. And honestly, it comes complete with the touchscreen sounds where it's and you flip other things. It has all the perfect noises. Then it looks like you're using a next generation style tablet.
You're right.
And
so that's more practical.
That's all I'm saying.
As far as usefulness and functionality goes, Network Info 2, that's the second app I'm going to link up. That's right, folks, 2 app picks for you this week. Network Info 2 gives you tons of information on the go about the network that you're on. You can do reverse lookups. You can get the Wi-Fi, SSID information, the signal strength, all of that kind of stuff. It's super crazy handy. Yeah, it's like a network diagnostic tool in your pocket. So that's Network Info, and that's free.
That is less than $1.36, to be sure.
That is definitely less than $1.36.
I love that we're at a point in our society when we look at $1.36, we're like, oh, but it's for money, technically. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. But meanwhile, we can go buy a $3.45 can of Red Bull.
Right. Not even bat an eye at all. Right. But, when people spend, weeks and months of their time putting together really interesting pieces of software with amazing artwork, heaven forbid we pay for that.
Right.
Different
I know,
topic.
Brian. But hey, you know what'll make you feel better, Brian? You know what's going to make you feel better? Let's do the news.
What's new in the news this week?
All right, Brian. Our top story on the news docket for this week. Debian 6.0 Squeeze is released.
Oh my gosh. That's actually a pretty big deal. It's weird. I don't have a whole heck of a lot to say about it at the moment. That's not already being said all over the internet. But it's actually, it's a nice, stable, awesome little release that half of every distro on the planet will be based on over the next 5 to 6 months.
That's really it, isn't it? That's why it's important. I mean, it's shipping with Linux 2632. You've got KDE 445. We're not talking, crazy new stuff, especially since KDE 4.6 just came out. But, there's an article over on Slashdot that kind of makes the case that you're making right now, and it just says, hey, look, Debian matters more than ever. Now, these are Debian's numbers, so take these following numbers with that under consideration. Yep. But Debian says that one of their project maintainers says that whenever you're using Ubuntu, Linux Mint, or MEPS, you're really using Debian with only some enhancements. According to a presentation that was recently given by the Debian project leader, only 7% of Ubuntu is directly derived from the upstream projects, Canonical's projects, or other Debian sources. Of the rest, 74% of Ubuntu is rebuilt Debian packages, and 18 are patched and rebuilt Debian
That's
packages.
true. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I can't say that exact number is true, but honestly, it's probably pretty close to that, because if you think about it, most of the system is most of the system. If you come in and take Debian and replace, 7 or 8 apps and throw in a couple extra libraries and some extra pictures and themes, you've kind of got most of Ubuntu. There are some additional work going into it that Ubuntu adds on top of that, for sure. There's no doubt. But really, it only makes up maybe 10%-ish of all the total Debian install package.
I was surprised when Linux Mint Debian Edition came out what seemed to be pretty quickly. And I don't know really how long they worked behind the scenes, but it didn't seem to be like this dramatic overhaul, complete 180-degree direction change for Mint Debian edition compared to Mint based on Ubuntu. So there seems to be some maybe proof in the pudding.
Yeah, and someone points out in the chat room with the nice quote: "The 7% they add is what makes it incredible." And to be fair, that additional little 7% is spit and polish. It's adding apps that work well together.
Magic fairy dust.
So you got to give kudos to the distros like Ubuntu that add on top of Debian. I know there's lots of conspiracy theories, not really conspiracy theories, but like people complaining a lot of these distros shouldn't be really based on Debian. They should be their own distro, and I think it's great. Right. I love Debian. Huge Debian fan. Honestly, Debian in my mind is the base standard Linux distro that makes the world go round. Like I'm a big fan.
Yeah, that's how our world's at least.
Like the Linux standard base, the LSB, is great. It's a great specification to say here's what Linux distros should be based on. Here's the set of tools. Right. Here's the standards. But really, in my mind, what makes the standards is for most people is Debian. I mean, for me, if it's not Debian, it's SUSE. I mean, that's kind of like the two options really there. And I know there's a lot of derivatives from Red Hat in there, but really people just aren't using that as much as they used to. So
no, there definitely seems to be a consumer interest in Debian-based derivatives.
It really is.
And also the fact that Debian is kind of a little bit of a slower moving target, with a little bit later packages, a little bit slower of a release cycle. The thing that works for a lot of shops. A lot of shops want that release frequency. They want something really slow trickle that they can manage in their product.
And really, when you think about it, the two big things that have really been just dominating the Linux world of the last few years, Debian and GNOME.
Yeah.
GTK and GNOME are slow evolving software. We're not getting big new revolutionary stuff most of the time. I mean, there's the GNOME shell thing coming, whatnot, but most of the time you get a new version of GNOME or GTK. It's this minor rev that fixes some bugs, tweaks some controls. Yeah. Same with Debian.
Right.
Minor revs, or not even minor revs, but slow, consistent, stable bases to build software on. And those are the two
always
things.
Slowly moving forward.
Those two bases is what most Linux users are using right now, GNOME and Debian. So there's really something to be said for that really methodical, slow, consistent, stable approach. And I gotta appreciate that.
I do too. Now let's talk about this next story because it loops back to a couple episodes ago when we covered Chrome dropping H.264 and Google's push with WebM. Well, the battle has started, and it's with the MPEG-LA. They've made a call out for people to throw into their patent pool that they're assembling for patents which are considered essential to Google's open-source royalty-free WebM VP8 codec. Huh. People consider this the first move by the MPEG-LA in creating a patent pool which would be used to demand royalties for the use of WebM VP8.
Oh, dear.
So not necessarily we're going to go sue you directly, but more like we're going to assemble all these guys, all these different companies out there that might have something of interest that applies to this, which, that's got to be a massive number. All of you guys just get in this big party, and then we're going to go knock on Google's door and say, hey, if you want to use Web8 or WebM, that's great. Go ahead and pay us for that.
Right. Huh.
And if you don't, then you sue.
Right.
And since we've had that episode, we've had that conversation, one of the things that surprised me an awful lot was to see Microsoft come out with a WebM plugin for IE, or announce they're going to, or something like that. I honestly expected Microsoft to keep like a 10-foot pole from this.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I did not expect them to come anywhere near VP8, but now to actually see we're getting momentum with the patent stuff, the whole situation is going to be in turmoil for a while.
I think so, which really just sucks for everybody.
Dude. It does, and it's I don't know. Maybe it's just what we have to go through for something to work long term.
Life is hard.
Got to buckle down,
Chris.
Yeah, right.
Life is hard.
Video codecs are hard. Video codecs are
hard.
This next story though might aim to make things a little easier for folks out there who have a hard time choosing which smartphone platform to use. Alien Dalvik. I think it's pronounced Dalvik.
I think so.
Like I'm going to throw that. Okay. All right. Alien Dalvik, which allows you to run non-Android apps, or allows you to run Android apps on non-Android phones. So it's sort of like an emulator, but it's just like bringing over the virtual machine, essentially, I would assume. So you essentially get the same performance and the same behavior characteristics that you do under Android because you're just emulating, you're in a virtual environment on Android as well.
It's the same thing.
You move that virtual runtime to another platform, right?
That's all there is to it.
That's It's kind of surprising that we haven't seen this
Yeah,
before.
Canonical was pushing that for a while there. They're like, hey, Ubuntu Netbook Edition, you'll see us being able to run Android apps on it. And of course, they seem to just have forgotten that they ever even talked about that. But
it totally went away.
But it's a totally straightforward thing to do. I mean, it's not trivial. It's not just hit one button and you can run it. But, with a little bit of work, it's pretty easy to get a complete runtime environment running on pretty much any platform for it.
Here's what he says in the article. It says that Alien Davik will allow the majority of Android apps to run without modification and appear as though they were native apps. They're calling it Mirrored, and they'll be demonstrating it this week at Mobile World Congress on a Nokia N900 running MeeGo.
Intriguing.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll have a lot to say about that in the next segment, but boy, that's definitely an interesting way to go with that. Because one of the things we've said that MeeGo would have an uphill battle with would be the massively already established market share of the Android phones and things like that with their app store. But you might be able to just completely negate that advantage if you could just run it on your freaking phone, regardless.
It would be nice. It would be nice. I mean, you can already run, let's say, on existing Memo phones like the N900 or even the old N810s and whatnot, a Palm emulator environment that allowed you to run basically every Palm OS application that was ever made, which honestly is like a million of them. It's some really good. If
you're
ones.
watching the video version, I got this guy has the N900 going right now, and he's running not just an Android application, but he actually ran an Android launcher even and get like an Android applications menu and everything. And the performance it looks like a mid-range to maybe slightly low mid-range Android phone. I mean, it looks as good as Android devices that are on the market right now.
Yeah, it does. And there's no reason it shouldn't. I mean, honestly, that particular N900 is beefy as hell and has lots of memory and is great little rig. So if they made the software right, why not? Yeah,
man.
It's pretty cool.
That's pretty exciting, huh?
I like that sort of thing, so I dig it.
Yeah. All right, the last story on the news docket is also a little Android related, and it's just a little leakage. Everybody likes to have a little leakage,
No,
right?
I love a little leakage. In fact, just earlier this morning, I had a little leakage. I had to clean some of that up. It wasn't mine, mind you, but there was leakage in the house, is what I'm saying.
Well, let's give a little love to a Linux running tablet. We talk a lot about tablets and where they're going to go and when we're going to actually see them, and this is going to be one of the first big ones that's not an iPad. That's going to be shipping
the $7 million Motorola Xoom, you mean?
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be rocking a $799 price tag.
$800.
Yeah, but it's going to be available at Best Buy February 24th.
A monthly data service plan just to use the Wi-Fi.
How ridiculous
So
is that?
just to be clear, everybody, the Linux-powered tablet is the most more locked down than the non-Linux powered tablets because of the way Motorola is choosing to go with this.
Because you could go and buy an iPad that has no 3G chip, that is just Wi-Fi, that is not contract based. But with this Xoom, they're saying a month of contract service. A month of contract service in order to activate Wi-Fi.
I guess it's just 1 month, but still, I mean, that's just ridiculous. When there's so many great things on the market, hitting the market. Yeah. I mean, there's so many cool tablets hitting. I know the Xoom looks cool. I know lots of people are like, really I want to run Honeycomb, the latest and greatest Android, whatever. I mean, really, if you grab a new Android-powered tablet, is that going to change your life? No. You're going to be running the same damn apps you're going to be running on Android 2.1 or 2.2. It's really not going to be that much different. There's, maybe the launcher will be a little bit different. That's it. So who cares? I mean, I don't know. Like,
people are doing the math, dude, and it's possible, I don't know, depending on which model you get and stuff like that. After you buy the Xoom for a minimum of $700, activate a month of data service, plus pay the activation fee and stuff like that, depending on the model you get, you may walk out with a $1,200 Xoom.
Bull crap.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, at that point,
they got to work on getting that price down.
At that point, it doesn't even matter. It's just forget it. It doesn't matter how cool it is or how cool Android is.
I know.
Or look at Arcos. Arcos makes a whole line of Android-powered tablet devices, and some of them honestly aren't that great. Like I've played with some of them, and I'm like, this just doesn't do it for me. But some of them are pretty cool, and they're all so much cheaper than that. Like the most expensive one they have is so much cheaper than that. Has more storage. Just seems like a better video playback device. Seems like so much better about it, and that's just Arcos. There's so many people. Look at your Galaxy. Dude, you got your Galaxy Tab. That's actually a pretty cool little tablet. How did that cost you? Over a grand?
No, I got it for $200. I got it on sale. It was a great.
So what you're
price.
saying is it cost you less than like a mortgage payment. Yeah. Whereas the Xoom costs you a mortgage payment just to have a little tablet. That's stupid. It's not even a computer. It's a companion device. It's not a laptop. It's just something to have to read some stuff on and dink around with. It'd have to be like a mission critical device for you to pay that. Seriously, kind of money. That's just. Especially on something like an Android device, which gets outdated within a few months. There we go. The Nook Color. Just go grab for that price, go
get a stack of them.
Go grab 5 or 6 Nook Colors just so you can multitask really, really fast.
I know, right? Yeah. With the Galaxy Tab, one thing that I found that I was really surprised about was the 7-inch form factor, while not ideal for all use case scenarios, means it's pocketable.
Yeah.
And that turns it from something you have to consciously remember to bring with you to something that you just leave in your coat pocket all the time. So whenever you put your coat on, you got your tablet. That's pretty cool, isn't it? And that makes the 7-inch really nice. And this, so this Xoom, I'm just not seeing where it's not a device for me. I don't get it. You knock $400 off that price. Maybe we're wrong. Motorola, send us a couple of Zooms. We'll think about it. How's that? Or hey, you know what? This leak says that it's going to be out on pre-orders. I think you'll be able to pick up on the 17th. It'll be in stores on the 24th of February. If you get one, let us know. Yeah, we'd love to hear if this is actually just rocking everything. So we'd like to hear. Yeah. All right, Brian. Well, that's all the news for this week.
Hey everybody, Jeremy here to tell you a little bit about another show here on our network, Jupiter at Night. Airing live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 8 p.m. Pacific, this show is a great way to get info and entertainment on the topics that matter to our audience.
We cover tech news, movies, space, science, world events, gaming, and all sorts of crazy junk.
So join us live for Jupiter at Night and hang out in our active chat room every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday over at jupiterbroadcasting.com/live.
Or grab the downloaded version on demand.
All right, so this is technically news, but this is so large and is going to spawn so much information and discussion around the topic that we're moving this into a whole segment. Nokia is dropping Symbian, which is technically an open source platform now, and are moving their entire phone base, or not their entire phone base, but their primary phones, their smartphones, are all going to be based on Windows Phone 7 going forward. This has brought a lot of concern from, darn near everybody. Everyone's generally freaked out about this. The Symbian folks, of course, are the most upset because this really means that Nokia basically just drop-kicked Symbian. That's not so great for Symbian lovers. It doesn't really affect me. I'm not a Symbian guy. I don't really use Symbian. True that. I have nothing against it.
Did you see that news story about the Symbian workers walking out because they? That
was fantastic. Basically, was it like 1,000 Nokia employees actually took? Basically, they walked out. They walked out of the offices for one day, like a one-day strike. Technically, it wasn't any big strike because they have like a flex time thing there at Nokia where it's okay for them to work from home a certain amount of days a week or whatever it was, something like that. So they all were like, well, let's just all do it today to make a point. So no one really got in trouble, but still, it was an act of civil, I don't want to say disobedience, but civil coordinated day off. I don't know, something like that. But anyway, so they're obviously upset. But what affects us more so is what happens now to MeeGo. What happens now to this joint venture between Intel and Nokia that is the combination of the Maemo and the Moblin projects into that one uber mega super awesome triumvirate of amazing Linux distros for portable devices such as their smartphones. We've heard rumblings that MeeGo is essentially ready and set to go for handsets for a little while now. We've seen like demo screenshots of what the device could look like, this new N9 something device.
But you know what's disheartening, dude, is you feel like it now seems like the time to question, well, what happens with MeeGo? But I think maybe the question we should be asking is, well, what's their intention been with MeeGo? Because when you see stuff already launched, like Engadget has some exclusive shots of concept Windows 7 phones. And this kind of stuff is generally done, it takes by committee. It takes time.
It's a little ahead of time, yeah.
Well, I wonder, how long have they been thinking about doing this? How long have they been thinking? we're going to hit pause on MeeGo. And I don't like the new language with MeeGo. They're calling it now an open sourced operating system project. That's a learning
That's
experience.
actually, let me read something to you here. So obviously I'm a MeeMo lover. Like I love, in my opinion, for mobile devices, the MeeMo distribution of Linux is one of the best. It's phenomenal. It's well done. It's well designed. Everything's great about it. I love it. And so obviously MeeGo being its spiritual successor interests me a lot. Well, over at meemo.org, if anyone cares to follow that, there's a wide variety of blog posts where people are obviously a bit taken aback by this. They're a little bit surprised.
Oh, I bet.
So I want to read a few quotes from one of these blog posts because I thought it was rather interesting. All right, this is from over at blog.marty.it, which you can find linked to at meemo.org.
Blog.marty, I like that.
So basically it says, and I quote, "As a Nokia employee working on MeeGo, I feel that my career is going to be deeply affected by the recently announced Nokia strategy. I'm not going to comment on the value of the business decision. Of course, I have my opinions about that too, but what I feel more important now is the future of MeeGo and Linux-based platforms in general inside Nokia. The announcement mentions MeeGo only marginally as a long-term market exploration," end quote. That ends the paragraph with Nokia still plans to ship a MeeGo-related product later this year. That sounds to me like we won't market any MeeGo devices in parallel with Windows Phone ones, not to hinder the later success, but we'll release the MeeGo product we're currently working on before downskilling MeeGo back into the R&D division. No matter how wrong my interpretation might be, let's try to collect a few facts. And then he lists basically the three things that he knows at this point. One, MeeGo is ready. It is not an R&D project. And he's got that all bolded and crazy fonted. And MeeGo Phone will be released. Second point, Nokia's primary platform for the middle long term is Windows Mobile or Windows Phone 7. 3, MeeGo will become within Nokia an R&D project at best. So, he goes on to say that he feels, confused and fooled and, basically he's updating his resume. Too.
Intel came out and said, well, this is a surprise to us, but we're not blinking on MeeGo. Right. They said we're disappointed with Nokia's decision and that they didn't know. Nokia didn't warn them. Talk about a classless move, but Nokia didn't give them a heads up that they were going to be dropping
It's very, very concerning. Now, if you start thinking about this from a further, concerning point of view, just from the open source world, Nokia owns the Trolltech guys. They own Qt or Qt, depending on how you want to pronounce it, which is critical. I mean, Qt is astoundingly important. I mean, being as all of KDE is based upon it. Now, up until now, Nokia's been great. They've funded the development. They've kept it going. Some substantial progress has happened while Qt has been in Nokia. But what does this mean going forward? Because they've actually come out and said to developers, and I think you've even got a story, on that, that there will be no Qt for Windows Phone 7 development provided by Nokia.
Yeah, they released a full press release, Nokia did. They came right out and to make it clear that their goal is to focus on the the Visual Studio 2010, Silverlight XNA approach to Windows Phone development. And in their press release, they clearly outlined that it's Microsoft and Nokia together, and that the Qt ecosystem, while awesome, is not their direction. Right. What they also kind of mention in here, without really saying it directly, because they're a bunch of wussies, is the Ovi store is also dead.
Yep.
So all the developers who have put their products in the Ovi store,
it's an end of life product, is what it feels like.
And Nokia is going in big time with Microsoft. They're going to use Bing Search. They're going to provide their nav info to Bing Maps. I mean, they're using a lot of the live services integration. It's not like here's your OS, see you later, like maybe you get with some of the Android manufacturers. It's a full two-way full integration with Windows services and Windows Phone. And so you just look at this and you go, yeah, if they're not dropping Qt, but they're not making it like the platform that everyone should be using to develop.
Doing Qt development on MeeMo and MeeGo is great. Doing Qt development on Symbian is great. However, if they're turning Symbian into an end-of-life product, that they'll support Qt development for Symbian just because there's so many devices out there in the field, that's going to ramp down over time. And if really they're turning MeeGo into a pure R&D project, how much money are they really going to be willing to spend on Qt going forward for simply an R&D project API when they don't even technically need Qt to develop MeeGo apps. You can still do it in GTK or what have you, and Clutter and all these other things. So why would they continue to fund it? I mean, I hope they do because it's important.
You just got to figure it's going to be a slow spin down.
That's my thinking.
Because, I look at statements like this. Now, this is, as we're recording the show, before we hit the record button, this news broke 5 minutes beforehand. So it's all early developing. But Nokia's Stephen Elop, the former Microsoft exec who's now the CEO over at Nokia, came out on stage at Mobile World Conference in Barcelona today and said, our first priority is beating Android.
Really? Because you kind of think their first priority should be making a successful product and like earning a good profit. You'd think that was their first priority.
I know.
Maybe second priority would be making existing customers happy. That maybe should be a second priority. Third priority,
and fixing your image.
Third priority, increasing share price. So let's say
maybe, and then once you do those things, you might beat Android.
Let's take a quick look here. Those should be your 3 top priorities. Number 1. Profitable, good product. Well, that remains to be seen. So, okay, fair. Let's put that one off to the side. Number 2, did they make customers happy? No, they pissed them all off. Basically, they took the huge communities of their current user base. We're talking like all of their current users and pissed them all off. Dude. They took all of their potential users who were lining up for the MeeGo side of things and pissed them all off. So they did the exact opposite of what they should do. And then third, stock price. Their stock went down when they announced this. So they really
by like 17%.
They failed on 2 out of 3 of the items. And the third one, who still remains to be seen. I mean, Windows Phone 7 phones are just not selling that big right now. So they're kind of hitching the wagon to a dead horse in that regard.
They're making a real big stink, and it's not like they're riding a champion's coattails.
Now, to be fair, Nokia has made some really great quality hardware phones. In all fairness, and their big problem has been software. And to be fair,
whoa, your face got all weird.
Like an iPhone and whatnot. It actually is pretty cool. It's got some cool looking things to it. Whatever. So maybe the combination will be wonderful. Maybe it'll sell to a lot of people. I don't want to get into that.
I'm sure we'll do okay.
I'm not interested. It's not of interest to me. So what I'm curious about though is what really impact does this have on the Linux side of things? Because with them controlling Qt as much as they do, and with them being so important to MeeGo, I know Intel's there too, but honestly, Intel doesn't have that much of an interest in phones. So Nokia was kind of
tablets,
the phone half of that partnership. Now, what do we see there? Where do we go from here? What happens to Linux-powered phones? And I'm not talking Android, because Android, while it is Linux and the kernel, it is Linux underlying, and there are Linux tools bundled in the Android system. It is really a Java runtime environment. That's really what Android is, and it's great. I love Android, but it's not a Linux system. You know what I mean? It's not like
MeeGo was, where it's an actual, there's actual X11 processes and all kinds of. I mean, it's true. There's
MeeGo. Hell, you drop in there and you've got your RPM packages with Memo. You drop in there and your apps get install stuff. I mean, it was a Linux user's phone. For a Linux user, it was them feeling comfortable on a phone.
You know what I feel like we're stuck up against as the open source community should know better, and I realistically probably do, but we're just constantly at the will of all of these large corporations. Yeah. We gotta go grassroots like we've done with all open source software and take it out of their hands, and we need to build the platform that answers the needs that we have.
You know what we really need, and this is really how I feel about it, we need the equivalent of what Mint did on the desktop. So a distro that was purely community driven, that came in and built upon existing technologies to make something that was cool, that pulled together enough of a user base, while maybe not billions of people, large enough to really sustain an ecosystem and fund development. We need that on the phone. We need someone to come in and have that community thing. So
we had OpenMoko for a while. You remember OpenMoko?
We did. So let's actually talk about OpenMoko and a lot of the other options here, because there are actually a lot of things that I wouldn't call anything other than a Linux distro for cell phones. And that kind of excites me. Basically, the ability to package together and have a distro for your cell phone. So let's talk about it. Let's start with OpenMoko a little bit here. So,
all right.
really, OpenMoco's gone nowhere. Now, I mean that in the nicest way possible, because if you go back and watch some of the earlier episodes, especially around the second year of the Linux Action Show, we talked a lot about OpenMoco and how excited we were for it. They had
especially after we got our hands on one for a bit.
A piece of phone hardware called the Freerunner, the Neo Freerunner. Yeah, and it was a cool little phone. It was small, it was rounded, and it had no physical keyboard, but it was nice, it was cute, and I liked it. And while the OpenMoco software stack was fairly buggy when we used it, it showed a lot of promise.
Yeah.
And it was a fully open source stack of software. It was a great little Linux distro that allowed you to...
This is before the iPhone was out.
Yeah, exactly. This was before the iPhone really came in and took over.
So it was more than 2 years ago then, wasn't it? It was more like 4 years ago.
It was back during the 1 year that Ubuntu had a dedicated Ubuntu conference, the Ubuntu One conference.
Right.
So it was 2000.
Ubuntu Live?
I think it was 1973. It was back in 1973
like
that OpenMoco was...
That's funny you say that because it's the Neo 1973. There's a...
Yeah.
But we got our hands on it. It was cool, and it was a homespun distro.
But it really never went anywhere, and it still exists. It's still an existing platform that people are working on, and it's just not making any headway. It's not gaining market share attention. It's not really making big waves with its functionality. It's kind of, and I hate to say it, but it's fairly stagnant. So let's look at some of the
made its way into a few devices, but yeah, for the most part, it just has not gone anywhere.
It's not gone many places. So let's look at let's go back a little bit. Let's look at MeeGo for a second.
Yeah.
Now, MeeGo is based on, well, it's basically a new version of Moblin with some of the Maemo stuff put on top. Now, it's a nice little kind of RPM-based distribution. It's kind of like you take Red Hat and make it into a nice mobile environment, and they put a nice UI in it, and it's great. And we've even got images right now that you can run on an N900, though, man, every attempt I've had to try to get it running on this N900 has failed.
Pain.
Spectacularly.
As Mr. Spock would say.
Darn near bricked the whole thing. But but technically it exists. People have got it working. A lot of people. So I'm either retarded or something. But anyway, so we've got it out there, but it's not really looking like it's going to go anywhere. If Nokia is saying that this is resigned to an R&D project, that's code for ain't going to do nothing, we're going to scale back development. I mean, that's what that's code for. I mean, unless Nokia comes out in the next week and says everybody, remain calm, we're going to continue our funding through this point, and we're going to keep it at this certain level, then we don't have any real reason to believe that there's a future in MeeGo for handsets. Now, maybe for
don't you think they would have by now with the way people are freaking out? They would have said something by now.
They would have said something. So then we look at it. So what's our alternatives? Well, let's go back. What about Maemo? Maemo still exists.
Yeah, what about Maemo?
Maemo still exists as a full platform. Now, there's some closed source bits in Maemo. Not very many, but some. So let's say, okay, well, what if we don't want those closed source bits? What if we want a fully open, community-controlled version of Maemo that we can put on tablets and smartphones and build on it from there? Well, there's a project called Mer. Now, Mer, M-E-R, is nothing more than a version of Maemo made to be fully open and community.
Yeah, it's even hosted by the Maemo.org site.
It is. It's over on the Maemo.org site. Unfortunately, because of MeeGo, the community decided, you know what? Let's shelve this. Let's put this all on hold because MeeGo's coming, and MeeGo's fully open, and Nokia and Intel are behind it. And obviously, the community didn't want to spread themselves thin. They wanted to do what was right and get a great handset.
What we always say, spend your resources wisely. Yep.
The good news is, and we've actually met some of the Mer folks, or at least some folks involved, at least somewhat with Mer, such as at Linux Fest Northwest over the years.
Yeah.
And Mer works. Because Maemo works, and Mer is working great. So there's no.
So it's a good place to resume from.
It's a good place to resume from. It's built on an older version of Maemo. It's built on basically Maemo 4. The thing is, that's not that bad. When you start to think about what Maemo 4 is capable of, full, 3D acceleration, really, if you get the right drivers in place, a great application stack, and you've basically got a full Debian-based distribution for building great mobile applications. So Mer is a great place to start. Right now, though, other than for tinkering with, or if you've got an old, say, N810 tablet, there's not much to do there. So that's kind of a bummer. But then let's take a step further back. Let's go to Hilden. Hilden is a basically a version of GNOME for portables. That's really what it is. If you look at, I don't know if you've got any shots there, Chris. Let me see if I've got
it.
Hilden. All right, you got Hilden up.
Yeah.
All right, so Hilden is very straight up. As they say, it's an application framework. It is really a collection.
/Hilden.
Yeah, it's part of the GNOME project, or at least hosted by the GNOME project, for which is what Memo is based on. Memo really is Hilden with some stuff thrown in. So you can use Hilden right now as a great basis for future development. In fact, Ubuntu Mobile Edition was originally based on Hilden. It was based on top of Hilden, using the Hilden framework, the Hilden APIs, a lot of the Hilden tools, and that's what it was based on. So really, this is a great foundation for building from. Now, you say, well, okay,
that's cool.
Ubuntu Mobile Edition, that's based on Hilden. Why not just go with Ubuntu Mobile? Because Ubuntu Mobile is really for tablets or mobile internet devices, as Canonical has said. And realistically, there hasn't been a lot of development there. The last release of Ubuntu Mobile Edition, near as I can tell, was 9.10. I could be wrong on that, but it's not a recent release.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
It's been a while.
Word.
So they,
speaking of mobile editions, before.
Yeah.
Did you notice too? I don't know if we got a chance to mention it. It's kind of off topic, but. We're kind of going backwards, but MeeGo also sounds like the netbook UI for MeeGo is also dying.
Yeah.
There's been the guy that was the lead developer spinning an OpenSUSE version of the MeeGo desktop for netbooks. Wrote in his blog that he was discontinuing development because there's been no movement on the MeeGo netbook UI project for months.
Yeah, the project seems to be stalled and dead. And that's
so if Hilden can do netbooks, if Hilden can be used for netbooks and for mobile devices, it kind of fills that gap that MeeGo was. It
absolutely does, and it's a good, clean place to start. You know what I mean? It's a fully functional right now way to go for mobile devices like this, for N900s, for a variety of different types of phones, and that's great.
Sure.
So that's fantastic. Now, there's some other options. I want to just throw 3 of them out there because I think they're kind of interesting. One is SHR.
Yeah, what's
this?
It is
basically it is a little GNU distribution for smartphones. It is mostly targeted at the Neo Freerunner because of the Neo Freerunner. It was fairly easy to target because it was for OpenMoko, and that's nice and open. It does have support for some other platforms. You can get it onto an N900. Some people have actually put it onto Palm Pres and the like, so it is possible, or an HTC Dream, that sort of thing. So it is possible.
So as long as the hardware has been well, learned or open enough.
No, take a look at the screenshots. Oh, there you go. You got it already pulled up. So
they're not bad. It looks kind of plain, but it's
very
not bad.
Plain. It's fine. I mean, to be honest though, so's Android. Realistically, if we look at these shots, it doesn't wow us. It doesn't make us stand back and go, "Oh my gosh, this is the future."
Well, that's why HTC wants to put Sense on there, and Motorola wants to put Blur.
Because Android itself is pretty plain looking too, and that's really not a bad thing. That's a-okay. So SHR is really that. It seems to be just fine. Now it's under active development. It's
the SHR project.
It is not moving at a rapid pace, near as I can tell, but it is under active development, and that makes me happy. Okay. So if you have one of those phones and you're looking for an actively developed distro to run on your phone, it looks like this is going to function. I've seen a lot of reports of some bugginess and like the dialer and things like that. But hey, if it's functional, go take a look, see if it's going to work right on your phone, and go from there.
Yeah.
The other one I want to take a look at is Qtopia, or Qt Extended.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Qtopia has been around a long time. You remember the Sharp Zaurus? It was an old PDA back when Windows CE and Palm Pilots were dominating the PDA scene. The Sharp Zaurus came along with this beautiful screen, and it had this little trackball on the bottom of it. I don't know if you remember that guy, but it was just gorgeous and had this great UI that it was all awesome. Qt based and running Linux. It was like the Linux portable device wet dream at the time, and it was awesome. I never had one because I was broke when that came out, and I just couldn't justify it. Yep. But they're really great, and to be honest, they're still pretty great. Now Qt Extended, or Qtopia, depending on who you talk to and when you refer to it. It has a lot of features, has a great UI, runs great on mobile devices, and it is no longer in development. The good news here is it was last really actively developed back in March of 2009. And while that may seem...
Yeah, that's not too long ago.
That may be technically almost 2 years ago, but realistically, if you look at mobile devices, what has Android provided or iPhones provided that really revolutionizes everything in terms of actual technology on the platform?
I mean, I'm looking at this feature list here, and the things that they list are, a windowing system, a synchronization framework, games and multimedia
Java,
frameworks,
wireless,
input methods,
everything.
development frameworks. Yeah, I mean, it's got like everything you'd think you'd need, and you could just start working on that.
It's a great platform to base things off of. So there is that. Now, here's the thing, though. It's part of Qt software. Now,
I know. What's going to
happen with that?
I'm sure Nokia isn't going to single-handedly destroy Qt software development.
It's part of Nokia right now. So that kind of makes you be like, well, you just don't know.
I know. It is. You don't know.
So the other side of things is OP. OP really sits on top of Qtopia. It forked off of Qtopia. So you'd say, what if we don't want to use Qtopia because we're uncertain about its future? You go with OP. OP is currently developed. It's actively developed. In fact, the last release was back in December. So it was last updated very recently. And check out the hardware support there. Runs on some of the Arcos devices, the Sharp Zaris, some of the old iPacs and compacts. And while this is old devices, I mean, sure, these are old devices.
Yeah. It's nice to be able to get a little more value out of
take an open source system that runs wonderfully well on old devices like this and port it over to some newer devices really is not that big of a deal. I mean, sure, you got to make some new drivers, maybe do some updates to handle new input types and screen resolutions. Sure, that's work. But the options are there. Now, so we've got all this.
And you got to figure when it comes to that driver stuff, the fact that it's running the Linux kernel makes getting the drivers to get that hardware working a little easier.
Exactly.
It's not like you have to develop them for the Android kernel or the Win7 kernel. It's just
they're Linux drivers. Exactly. And theoretically, let's say we've got with all the Android phones out there running the Linux kernel, they have drivers in many cases open that we can utilize for those chipsets. While that doesn't mean it'll be terribly easy to say get these particular distros on some of the Android phones, a lot of the phones use the same chipset. So it does make it easier.
So once you kind of figure out how to bypass that one chipset, I mean, it's the same way the rooting and ROM community gets away with it now on Android phones, is they eventually figure out how to bypass that stuff.
So it does,
and then it
does make it a little bit easier. Now, the other thing here is this. There is, and this may not be cutting edge, but there are a lot of phones out there that you don't really need to do a whole lot of work on to get some of these new environments on. The N900, some of the old Windows Mobile 6.5 phones, so the old AT&T Tilts of the world and whatnot.
Yes.
Now,
there's big communities around those.
There's big communities around those. If you go over to the XDA Developers Forum, just search for XDA Forum, you'll find it.
Love the XDA. As an Android user, I spend a ton of time
over there. You'll notice that people have even gone so far as to getting Ubuntu 9.10 or 904, I can't remember which revision, running on a huge variety of old phones, such as like the AT&T Tilt and the old phones that nobody has used in a while now. And oddly enough, runs pretty well. Surprise, surprise, Linux is pretty efficient and has a low memory footprint. Oh my gosh. If you don't run a ton of applications with a huge overhead, it runs pretty great.
Well, isn't that funny? All these years we've said, one of the great things you can do with Linux is you can get a few more years of use out of your old computer. Hey, there's school districts, use Linux. And now it's like, hey, all of these smartphones that everybody buys, one or two of a year. Well, not everybody, but some people do, like myself. Yeah. And, you end up with all of these things, and eventually they just sit around and you go, well, I could sell them, I could give them to somebody else, but if I could reload them with a new OS and get another life out of them, I could give it to a family member and be like, here's a great phone. Or maybe use it myself.
Exactly. And what I've noticed, and with playing around with some of these things, so I loaded Ubuntu on my Tilt. So it was a painless process where literally it gave me a launcher inside Windows Mobile. I clicked it. It's running like Windows Mobile 6.1, I think is what it was running on that thing. And it's an old phone and it's a crummy phone in a lot of ways. But click, tap.
Ubuntu's cool.
It booted up Ubuntu and it was fine. Runs great. I didn't have to do anything crazy to it. I didn't have to rootkit it or anything crazy. Just boom, run Ubuntu. It basically unloaded Windows Mobile. launched Ubuntu, loaded the kernel, and it was pretty peppy. Now, granted,
Is it usable? Is the UI decent?
it's usable. It's totally usable. I mean, granted, the screen resolution is small, but
Yeah.
to be honest with you, I mean, it's not that much worse than a netbook.
It's not GNOME, is it?
Yeah,
No
yeah,
kidding.
full on GNOME. I mean, to make it easier, you move everything so you don't have a whole bunch of panels, and you consolidate
yeah.
just like you did on some of the early netbooks where you didn't have a lot of
Yep.
screen resolution. You consolidated, you made a nice
Yep.
small UI. It works. It works.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you're not going to go running full on Ubuntu on your old phone as your primary
Right.
phone because you don't necessarily have the software stock to get that running great to make it a great phone.
Yeah, yeah. You're not making a call.
The thing is that the option is there. The possibilities are there.
Yeah.
And what we need is someone to come along and take any one of these distros. I would like to see something great based on Hilden or
Yes.
Mare forked and made the next great community-driven phone system, even if you just for the time being focus on supporting one phone, whether it's the N900 or something else, some sort of commodity phone that's easy to pick up, that is fairly inexpensive.
Maybe it's decent.
But a decent phone.
Yeah.
Like an N900 is great because
Yeah.
you can get it for fairly inexpensive right now. You can still get them new if you want, and you can put a whole lot of systems on it, and it's already based on Debian, which makes the process that much easier. I would love
Good
to see
point.
someone really come along and do it because the software stack for great dialers, for great telephony stuff is already existing. Someone needs to just bundle it all together and release a good Linux distro for it. I would absolutely jump all over that. I would use the hell out of that. That is
know,
what I
right?
want because I'm tired.
I could also see a ton of industry use for it. These, getting a more complete Linux environment on your tablet is really handy for like remote troubleshooting and stuff like that. There's so many times when I walk up to a situation, I'm like, oh man, if I could just do a couple more things from this device, I wouldn't even have to pull the laptop out of the bag.
Exactly.
So-
And I
Yep.
don't want to get tugged around by these companies anymore. I'm tired of
That's the big thing, isn't it?
I'm just straight up tired of it. I'm tired of buying Android devices and not being able to upgrade to the latest system.
I'm tired of like getting all behind a platform, deciding like this seems like a great way to go. I'm excited. I'm ready to invest time and energy into
yank
this,
it.
and the worst part is there's that story that just came out, which I'll link to in the show notes. It literally just broke. Just to wrap this all up. This whole thing really is, Brian. It's truly about taking our own control back because these companies do these things and we have no say. We have no repercussions what to do. And the irony of it all is Nokia just said, Stephen Elop, the CEO of Nokia, the former Microsoft exec, just said at Mobile World Conference on stage not 15 minutes ago. And this is so infuriating as just an end user who just takes it. He says that they're going to take a large payment sum, an undisclosed large payment sum from Microsoft for the Switch. So they're getting a big check for this. So they're potentially boning the future of MeeGo and Qt for a large check.
Pisses me off. I mean, as a business decision, maybe the check was large enough to make it justified for them. I don't know. But for me as a user, for me as a developer, for me as an advocate of the entire platform, for me as a guy who spent the better part of the last year advocating that people get behind MeeGo, that Nokia had the best interests in heart, they make me feel like a tool. And that pisses me off to no end. And I'm not cool with it. That's it. I'm done with it. I'm done with Nokia unless they come out and they really clarify that they meant something different by all of this and like do it tomorrow. I'm done. There's lots of great open source technology out there. Linux is awesome. Hilden is awesome.
It's like, who can you believe now? Who can you trust?
Is a great platform to build on.
You gotta go with the open source grassroots projects. It's the only thing you can trust because there's an open, transparent community there that you
know what
can
I would
follow.
love? What I would love is for someone to come along, take something like Hilden, add in a couple of applications, work on make it working with some companies to get some decent drivers for some of the older phones or even some of the newer phones.
Sure.
And push that forward as a standalone distro of getting a kind of a bare bones Linux phone going. And then I would love to see the guys over at Mint or the guys over at Saboyan or or the Kubuntu guys come along and say, you know what, this is great. I'm going to respin your distro, and I'm going to make Linux Mint Mobile Edition. I'm going to make the Saboyan Mobile all based on this, and I think that would be awesome.
Yeah,
people would have choice in how their phone works, what tools their phone comes with, how their phone looks and acts and behave, what they load on it. That would be awesome. That would be just stellar. I would love that. Nothing would make me happier right now.
That's what we need.
So I'm just going to throw that out there. That's all great. One other thing I want to point out: there are a lot of options out there for building your own phone. I believe actually the Gumsticks guys, if anyone's seen those, over at Gumsticks with an X at the end, you can kind of put together the pieces and parts to build your own phone, or at least most of your own phone. And they've kind of standardized on Angstrom Linux, which is a distribution of Linux that runs pretty great on an embedded device. And there are some great telephony packages available for that. So if you want to, you could actually spend probably a couple $100, probably more like $400 when you're done, have a touch screen, a battery, a controller, and actually have built your own phone and then run Angstrom Linux
Here
on
we
top
are.
of it.
How about that, dude? We've just reached the phase where now you can build your own.
It's going to be a fair bit of work,
PC.
and when you're done, you're not going to have a case to stick it in, so you're going to have to build your own case and everything. Wouldn't it be epic to build your own phone and then make your own wooden case? So you could walk around with a polished wood case, running a version of Linux that you built yourself. I mean, that's just epic fun. Granted, a lot of work. A ton of work, and in the end, you'll actually have probably spent more money than just going out and buying a phone. But still pretty cool that it's even possible nowadays, like all of that. So anyway, I really hope that someone comes out. My guess is with all the turmoil that's going on, with all the press that's going on, someone's going to do this. Someone's going to come out shortly and say, you know what, here's the Brian Lunduk project. I'm assuming they're going to name it after me. I'm just assuming.
Lunduk Project 1.0, and then everybody will have their phones, and you'll load the Lunduk.
And then Linux Mint will come out with theirs. It'd be Linux Mint Mobile built on Lunduk technology. Right. I'm just assuming the word Lunduk is going to be now synonymous with amazing freedom enhanced power in your pocket. That's what I'm assuming.
And what's important with that kind of stuff, Brian, is branding and theming. So if you could, you'd probably want the Lunduk Accelerated Direct 3D API or something like that.
Right. And when it starts up, it's just my face. I don't care. I just want to see someone do something, and it frustrates me. I'm frustrated at Nokia. I'm actually somewhat frustrated at Intel as well, because honestly, while Intel is saying we're not blinking on MeeGo, they are. They're pulling back.
Where's the beef?
They're pulling back. At least it seems like they're pulling back. I want to see a renewed commitment to the platform from them. Now, granted, the Linux Foundation has control over MeeGo. That's something that is worth noting. They are the ones who have ultimate control over MeeGo. So I'm curious what the Linux Foundation has in terms of resources available or in terms of interest of pursuing MeeGo on a mobile platform. I haven't heard anything from them yet, but I'm hoping we'll hear something from them fairly soon. Obviously, this probably caught them quite a bit off guard as well. So I don't hold any grudge against Linux Foundation. Those guys are awesome. I want to high five all of them.
Yeah,
so
they're
I'm just really curious what it is that they can really do or what they want to do. So we'll see.
I like the chat room suggestion of a name of Lundora as the distribution name.
No, that's no good, guys. That's not cool. I'll have to put up with this. I could hit the hang up button here anytime.
All right, Brian. Well, I think we ought to wrap it there. That's our look at what the heck did Nokia just do to MeeGo.
And that brings us to the end of this week's most excellent program. Oh, okay. So now that we've had a lot of stuff going on, Nokia pissed us off good and plenty this week. We also had the Debian release. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on. There's good news stuff going on, not just Nokia coming at us and stabbing us in the eye a few times. So that's good. So everybody, let's focus on the positive here. You know what I'm saying? This is you remember back when what was it when Asus came out and said everything was better with Windows and you want to run everyone should run Windows on their netbooks and everything else, and that just pissed us off. That just pissed us off to no end. You know what? There was good news back then too. There's good news now. Let's focus on the good news.
I agree.
These little blips.
Focus on the
blips. You know what we say to them?
Growing pains.
Sure. I was gonna say F them.
Yeah.
But yeah, yours was more family appropriate. So I like that too.
It's just a little bit of constipation along the open source digestive tract.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, everyone, you got to be constipated a few times in your life. Otherwise, you don't appreciate what you got when you got it. You know what I'm saying?
You nailed it,
You know what I'm
man.
saying? You don't appreciate the high fiber diet until you go off of it and eat McDonald's for a week. You don't.
Hey, I want to tell people about something though. I'm kind of rolling the dice when I do this, so I'm not sure if it's a great idea. So we've been streaming all of these shows live, and we've been doing that on Justin TV, and they do an always on, always on recording. And a lot of folks are now going in through and doing highlights, and we've been getting so many highlights of like behind the scenes moments on the live stream that I went ahead and I made a YouTube channel of some of the better clips, and that's youtube.com/JupiterBackstage. And one of folks' favorites is from a couple weeks ago where you inhaled Sprite right directly into your lungs, and I got that clip up on there.
Did you really?
It was a live stream exclusive only, but we've been able to port some of these videos
Holy
over
crud,
down
there's
to
a lot
this
of them
YouTube
in there.
page. Yeah, dude. People have been highlighting a lot of moments. Well, every show we do is live now, and there's so many moments that happen with the recorder not going just because the camera's always on, and so people are just grabbing them and we're putting them up there. It's pretty cool.
That's actually pretty awesome.
youtube.com/JupiterBackstage.
I love it. And if you want to get a hold of us, you can do so over at Facebook, facebook.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. The Colony, JupiterColony.com, which is where we talk about things with other people. It's like a forum.
That's true.
We can find us on Twitter.
It is like a forum.
Twitter.com/Brian Lunduke, Twitter.com/Chris LAS. It's very, very fancy for everyone involved. Holy moly. Holy moly,
All
what
right,
a week.
man.
I'm pooped.
Yeah, welcome back. Glad to have you back.
Man, oh
man.
man. My wife and child are sleeping right now. I can see
you
them
should
at the
go
other
join
side of the room. They're
right.
zonked out. So I'm gonna go over and make sure they're doing okay. And then you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take a nap. I'm gonna take
Nice
an
job,
epic
man.
nap. And you know what? I might even, if I nap enough, shower today.
Oh, now don't set the bar
no
too high.
guarantees, ladies and gentlemen on the internet. But just be thankful that this show is not one of those in-person shows, and that there's no like
Or
big
smell-o-vision
event
or
going
something.
on right now. But I'm in here from my house, streaming from my seat, which is very good. Actually, you'll notice the camera's very close in on my face right now.
Yeah, it's right there.
The camera's kind of at a funky, weird angle. My chair's broken.
Nose cam.
My chair
it?
broke and dropped down, and so I had a hard time getting my camera in a spot that actually looked okay.
Good job, man.
Won't raise up. Every time I raise it up, it just goes, zoom, comes right back down.
Way to persevere.
Yeah, I pull throughs from time to time. But anyway, that's all I got. That's all I got, and that's all I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about anything else.
All right, B-Man. I think that's all we've got for this week's episode of
That's
the
what I
Linux
just
Action
said. That's
Show.
all we got.
I know. But of course, we come out live every Sunday, and then you can download the on-demand version later on Sunday evening, Monday morning.
And here's the great news.
When you like.
You
the great news?
can download this show, watch it again and again.
Why wouldn't you?
In your office with your volume turned up.
Yeah.
That's the way to go.
What we'd like everybody out there to do is download the OGG version and the MP3 version and the different video versions. Download each
download them
version
all.
and let us know what you think.
Let us know which one you like better, and then play them all for your family, for your friends, for your coworkers. Put it on repeat in your boss's office where he can't find the speakers. Just see which one they like better. We'd appreciate it.
If your building where you work has one of those Muzak systems and you have access to the player, if you could just jack in some Linux
They totally
Action
should
Show.
play this at like all furniture stores. Like you go to like the Lazy Boy Gallery. This is just playing over the intercom. So, just because I know people are going to do that, that couch looks real nice. There we go. So now when they're in
You
there,
look so comfortable.
they're going to want to buy that. And now the people at the furniture stores are like, man, I should play this all the time. Help
Yeah,
sales,
talk about furniture.
huh? So there you go.
These guys are my kind of people.
Because
All right,
they
everyone,
like
thanks so much
couches,
for
I
watching.
guess.
And we'll see you right back here next week.